Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Today's story is about a restaurant kitchen that turned into an all-out battlefield and how one fed-up pastry chef finally got the last laugh. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. The kitchen bully who finally got put in her place. So this was a few years ago, right after the end of the pandemic. I was working as a guard manager, pastry chef, and wanted to change restaurants to shake things up. I ended up at an Italian place in town that seemed like a nice enough place. I didn't try it first, and I now regret that. Now, it's important to understand the weird structure of this particular restaurant. The owner was in his 70s and barely ran anything. We'll call him Tom. He just wanted to run his app station and pay someone else to be head chef. That chef is my mentor. We'll call him Otto. There was a sous chef, Keith, and the front of house manager, Janine. Janine had been working line cook shifts in the back due to short staffing and felt that made her our boss, even though she had literally zero authority over the line cooks, let alone the chefs. Now, this restaurant, to put it nicely, has seen better days. Not kitchen nightmares material, but definitely going underwater due to their rapidly aging fan base. Chef Otto was brought in originally as a consultant to revamp the menu and overhaul procedures. He did. Then Janine nagged Tom until he slowly made Otto change it back. Here's the thing. Jay hates change. We've been doing it this way for 20 years. Yeah, and you're in the red. Clearly things need to change. After a few months, Chef Otto got fed up and moved to another restaurant 40 miles away. Unfortunately, I couldn't follow at the time because of a family situation. We remained in touch, him teaching me a lot of things just through conversations. They brought in a new executive chef, Dud, to take over. Janine helped choose this guy. Why did she want him? Because he was a burnout doormat that would do whatever she wanted. Sous Chef Keith and I tried desperately to convince them to stop using recipes that physically, scientifically did not work. But Janine's complaining continued, her famous mantra, "It's fine, we've done it for X number of years," slowly driving me mad. Janine is not just stubborn, she's an active bully that did not like it when people told her no. Tom hasn't had passion for much probably since the 70s, so it was easy for her to bully him and get whatever she wanted. Eventually, Keith also got fed up and bounced, leaving me alone to deal with Janine and her beaten-down lackeys. Now, the important thing is that, weirdly, Tom actually really liked me. He liked that I was excited by food and wanted to make everything beautiful. This meant he gave me free reign. My station was my kingdom. Until the restaurant started opening 7 days a week again, suddenly someone else had to run my station when I wasn't there. Guess who? Janine. Janine took this as her opportunity to try and push me around, even though she'd been told repeatedly that she was not my boss and couldn't tell me to do jack. She'd rearranged my entire, very large station and prep area for the 1 day a week she watched it, then complained when I fixed it. Now, I'm a fan of do what you gotta do to make a station work for you, especially since she's very tall with back pain. I didn't mind her setting it up how she needed for service. I just wanted her to put it back when she left. It's just basic respect. If it's not your station, put it back. This war went on for months, Tom trying to have a backbone with her because he didn't want me to leave. Near the end of my stay, he brought in an ACF-certified master chef and his apprentice to try again at revamping the menu. The master chef, Andy, did an exquisite job at modernizing and improving procedures. Let's just say that a lot of the methods we used for Janine's precious recipes were ineffective at best. His apprentice, Nina, was a pastry chef who helped me revamp the entire dessert menu. Tom gave the two of us full control. They were beautiful, easy to plate quickly, and absolutely delicious. The only thing pre-made that we had was the gelato. Janine did not like this at all. She went into absolute overdrive, bitching constantly, making her old recipes when prepping, hiding ingredients, hiding equipment, the works. One thing that seriously got on mine and Nina's nerves was that she literally wouldn't garnish the plates at all. She was just too lazy, I guess. Or maybe it was another middle finger. I had a kettle soup warmer to keep hot fudge warm during service because I go through a 10-pound can of the stuff every 2 days. she started hiding it. She's a tall woman, like 6'2", and I'm smaller, like 5'4", so she'd hide it on top of things. Now, because I'm not a 3-year-old, I'd quickly find it and get it down. All the while, she was convinced that Nina was her new best friend. She wasn't. Nina hated her as much as I did and would tell her where she hid things to gloat. Nina would obviously turn around and either tell me or just go get it. After all this, my final straw arrives. Tom gave me a budget to go and buy new plates for my new salads. The old salad plates were admittedly very pretty once, but were very old and beat up. They needed to be replaced regardless. I picked out some new plates. They arrived. They're gorgeous. Tom likes them. Even seems a little excited about something for once. I came back from my day off 2 weeks later to find all of the new plates in the basement and all the ratty beat-up plates they hadn't thrown out yet back on the station. That was it. I don't know why that was my final straw, but it was. I called Chef Otto within 10 minutes of getting to work and asked if he had a spot for me. He asked what happened, and I gave him the whole rundown. He offered me more money and less responsibility so that I could focus more on learning the other kitchen roles that I'd never really gotten to explore. I put in my 2 weeks that day. Tom was not happy with Janine and, for once, actually put his foot down with her. She wasn't allowed near me my whole notice period. I think he was hoping I'd change my mind. Well, time for petty revenge. My final day comes and Janine isn't there. I suddenly have a wicked idea that didn't actually hurt anything. I took all the most vital, high-traffic items and moved them all to the bottommost shelves and drawers. Now, this was a huge station with drawer fridges and a Pepsi cooler, so you can imagine about how low those lowest shelves and drawers were. Not just the coolers either. I also did the equipment drawers, dry goods, freezers, you name it, and it got a makeover. I unfortunately didn't get to witness my artwork firsthand, but I did hear about it later from the dish guy. He said that she spent days cursing, bending over, and having to reorganize. I never heard boo about it from Tom because he was still mad at her for driving me out, so either he thought she deserved it or didn't believe her. Either way, imagining her spending days having to bend over every couple of minutes definitely scratched the itch of pure frustration that had built up over the 4 months after my chef left. I know this is awfully long for a petty revenge story, but this woman seriously made my job an irritating nightmare every single day. That woman's either purposely running that restaurant into the ground, or she's just so stupid and petty and doesn't see what she's doing. I'm convinced she's just a petulantly absurd cow who can't even understand what she's doing to the company because she's so obsessed with having all the power. And our next story. The crazy inheritance. I'll be honest, I grew up believing my father was a walking disaster in human form. My mom was 17 when he left her pregnant. Then he somehow came back, pretty words, promises, I'll change. And by some miracle, talked her into taking him back. He didn't last long. When Mom was 20, he bailed again, leaving her with 2 kids, me and my brother. I remember those days as the smell of cheap coffee on an empty table and a list of debts stuck to the fridge under a cat magnet. Mom worked 2 jobs. We wore thrift store clothes. I was ashamed of my sneakers and of the fact that I brought a sandwich to school with a single slice of bologna and some mayo because it was cheaper. I learned early to count every dollar. We only heard scraps about Dad. Mom didn't say much, but when she did, it was always in a hush, like she was asking the universe to take it out of our lives. He got some kind of accounting degree somewhere, ran other people's arrangements, and somehow kept 4 families going, just like ours. He showed up, made promises, disappeared. Then he just moved to Mexico, picked up a new wife, and that was that. 15 years, no calls, no letters, nothing. I learned to live without that voice in my head, even if sometimes when my brother needed something for baseball or I needed a prom dress, I'd think, if we had a decent dad, we wouldn't have to borrow. Then one day a letter arrived from a lawyer. At first I thought it was spam or debt collectors, but the envelope was real thick. They wrote that my father had died. Heart attack during a hotel robbery, and of course he wasn't alone. There was some new woman with him. I sat on the edge of the couch reading paragraph by paragraph while my head kept banging out, okay, he's dead, now what? The attorney added a twist. There was a will, and don't laugh, I was the sole heir. Not my brother, not the other kids. No, just me. For a long time, I wondered if it was revenge on one of his families or just his usual chaos. Turns out he'd been doing shady things in Mexico, but the property in the States was clean. And what I got was a parcel in our state, 60 acres with a private lake and about 180 feet of our own beach. Not part of an HOA, no dues, nothing. The HOA community nearby has its own water access about 250 feet from my boundary. I have my shore, my sand, my private property, and no trespassing signs. The first time I walked down to the water with the keys in my hand, my fingers were shaking. I thought about Mom, how we counted coins for years, and now I was standing on my own land, quiet and beautiful, like it was breathing. The first 2 weeks were fine. Then it started. Sunday morning, I walk out with a thermos and see a full-on picnic on my sand. Not one family, a crowd, a rope swing tied to my tree, a grill, kids running, dogs digging, music blasting from a speaker. I walk up as politely as I could. Hey, this is private property. Your access is around the corner where your community sign is. They smiled and waved me off like I was a waitress. We've always come here. It's for the community. I repeated, no, not the community. It's my beach. And that's when Karen enters, classic haircut, speaking like she's my boss. She says, we've used this shore for years. There was a verbal agreement with your grandpa. I take a breath. My grandfather died before I was born and never lived here, but fine, I say. If there was an agreement, show me the paperwork. Karen laughs. Call the owner, he'll confirm. I look at her, take out my phone. Great, I'll call. I tap the button and the ringtone plays in my own hand. Everyone slowly gets the joke. I'm the owner. This is ridiculous, Karen says, rolling her eyes. They bluster for a few more minutes and tear down the swing. The next day, I ordered new signs and installed 2 cameras, one in the tree, one on the shed. And yeah, I'm not a saint. I wanted evidence because when I heard that we've always tone, the old childhood fear clamped down in my gut that someone would take something from us. The cameras paid for themselves in a week. The video clearly shows 2 members of the HOA board, later I matched them to photos, ripping down my signs and tossing them in a trunk. I called the police, the sheriff came out, looked at the boundary markers, checked my deed, and said plainly, this is private property, they have no right to be here. He had a chat with a couple of sunburned guys in lake life tees and left. I exhaled. Thought it was over. 3 days later, the HOA board decided to hold a community meeting on my beach. Seriously, around 85 people showed up, folding chairs, coolers, some already toasting to the win. Karen had a megaphone and was reading bylaws. I stood off to the side thinking, this is it. This is the moment I either slip back into that powerless kid or I grow up in 5 minutes. I called the sheriff again. He arrived with 2 cars this time. A short conversation later, people were asked to leave. Some tried to make a scene, but the facts were simple. Trespassing on private property, theft of signage caught on camera, at least 3 board members clearly in frame. The police took statements. I was given a case number. That evening, I sat on the porch, watched the water, and cried. From anger, fear, exhaustion. I kept hearing my mom, honey, you have a right to what's yours. Next episode, paper war. The HOA sent a letter demanding open access to the shore via prescriptive easement and public use. They hinted that it's always been that way and the community has an established custom of use. My attorney, the best money I've spent this year, took them apart piece by piece. First, my parcel has never been in the HOA, as the registry confirms. Second, so-called adverse use here requires continuous, open, hostile use against the owner's rights for a clearly defined number of years with no permission from the owner. But we have signs, warnings, police calls. Third, they already have an official access point 250 feet away. They are not landlocked. Case closed. We requested their internal emails and pretrial discovery, and that's where it got delicious. Messages between board members, we know it's not our land, but if people get used to going there, we can later formalize it as community custom. Another, tear down those stupid signs, people are getting antsy. Something flipped inside me then. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like the girl in cheap sneakers. I was a woman with documents, cameras, and patience. The court wasn't fast, but it was straightforward. We filed suit, intentional boundary violations, mass trespass, theft of property, the signs, attempts at coercion. I didn't play the victim. I presented facts, video, photos of the boundary markers, the deed, HOA letters, their emails. Karen tried to talk about a verbal agreement with Grandpa, and the judge raised an eyebrow. Documents? There were none, just bravado. The ruling for intentional violations, $60,000 in actual damages. Ours included reestablishing markers, security, replacing equipment, loss of use for several weeks, and yes, the law allows it. Plus $35,000 in punitive damages, $40,000 to cover my legal fees, a permanent injunction against the board and specifically named individuals setting foot on my parcel, and the best part, liability not just from the HOA budget, but personal, board members paying out of pocket roughly $130,000. Karen was removed from her position, the HOA split at the seams. At the next meeting, half the people were yelling about why they had to pay for someone's "we've always used it" fantasy. I didn't pop champagne. I ordered extra boundary markers, placed a couple of discreet beacons along the path, and signed a contract with a company that patrols the shoreline on peak weekends once a week. Then I did what seemed like magic in childhood. I leased fishing rights and limited water access to a club from another town. With clear rules, insurance, and caps. $65,000 a year, white paper contract, clean money, zero chaos. When it all calmed down, I brought my mom out. We sat in folding chairs in the shade and watched the water touch the sand. Mom was quiet for a long time, then said, "Your father caused us a lot of pain, but you turned it into something good." I don't know if that's fair. I don't know why I was the one in that will. Maybe it was random. Maybe it was the final foolish gesture of a man who ran from responsibility all his life. But I know this for sure. My land is mine. And if another Karen ever tries waiving verbal agreements, I'll call the owner, and he'll answer in my hand. I learned two simple things. First, politeness isn't submission. You can calmly say no and defend what's yours. Second, paperwork isn't boring, it's armor. Cameras, the deed, boundary markers, correspondence, all of it protects you when voices on the beach drown out common sense. And somewhere at the bottom of this story is a little girl in cheap sneakers who finally stopped feeling ashamed. She looks over the sand that isn't someone else's anymore and thinks, we deserve a good shore too. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.